thank you, Richard. That's fantastic. I am so thrilled where the last bullet on his slide leads directly into what I'm going to talk about. I've actually done this where it was completely counter to what I was about to say. It makes it a little bit more difficult entry, so thank you, Richard. I'd like to say there were hours and hours of planning that went into this smooth transition. There weren't, but that's okay. So if we could start with my slides, fantastic. So ZoneTV is a new digital entertainment company. We really do think of ourselves as bridging this OTT and pay TV gap, and I'll talk more about what that means and why as we walk through here. So first, a little bit about us. We've been around for a while and essentially taking digital content into pay TV operators. The history of the company was media room focused, so if you think about the telcos that got into TV, I ran Uverse for a long time, so that's my history, but you can see a number of the other brands. Last year, I've been doing this about a year and a half, and we made the decision to move outside of media room, very cleverly, to get into cable and satellite. And you see the first couple brands that we brought on, Comcast and DirecTV, with our existing set of services. So this is the business we've been in. We're in 38 million homes today, taking digital content, putting it on our cloud-based platform, and delivering to operators in some form or another. And what we do is we deliver different types of experiences. So you see the two boxes on the right, on demand and interactive are our existing products. What I'm going to talk about today, we call dynamic channels from ZoneTV, and we'll actually launch that in a few months on a couple of operators. So more to come there. Unfortunately, no announcements today. So we're in 38 million homes. We have a platform, we're doing those digital content deals, and we're just delivering different types of experiences, but all of it is bridging this OTT and pay TV divide. And you heard in the conversation, we really talk about these worlds separately. There's a pay TV world and there's an SVOD OTT world. And I think that's appropriate, by the way. Their content creation, the ecosystem is different, the business models are different, the distribution is different, the experience is different. I think increasingly those will come together, and I think that's part of what we want to talk about. So I won't kill you with all of this slide. I think there's a couple of things to take away. We have a very strong bias that pay TV providers are going to be around for a long time. And we say that the OTT explosion is real. We're not trying to pretend it's not, but that the aggregators, cable, satellite, and telco, are in a terrific place and clearly need to evolve their offerings, a little bit on pricing, et cetera. But if they do that, they have a very, very healthy long-term position, and part of what we're trying to do is help them do that. There is this digital content explosion. I don't think that's breaking news anymore. And again, we're really in the business of putting those two things together, and I'll talk much more about that. But if you believe that OTT is taking over the world and pay TV is dead, then the path we're going down doesn't make sense. Clearly, that's not the position we take. So what we do is we go do digital content deals. We license for pay TV that content. We've got about 4,000 hours licensed right now. And we curate those into channels, but they're not traditional linear channels. And here's our current lineup of channels. So lifestyle, genre, a little bit of demographic focus, so you can see man cave and what that might be, and foodies, et cetera. A couple examples of our channels. So we're really bridging in the first way by taking digital content, and this is content that's out there, it's getting consumed outside of the pay TV subscription. So the first way we're helping operators is we're taking that content and bringing it inside of their subscription world and just making content available that's not available simply, certainly, through the pay TV. On the other side, for content providers, what we're doing is we're saying, you have a great business, it's lovely, you're an SVOD or an AVOD or however you're making a publisher, for instance, and you've got a lot of good content, the likelihood that you're going to get a deal done with DirecTV or Sky or whomever is somewhere around zero. And so let us take that content, we'll put it into this interesting experience, and you'll frankly open up a whole new audience. And you saw the data around what happens when SVOD or OTT it gets integrated with what pay TV. I'm going to steal those slides, by the way. It's really powerful for a consumer to start to have easy access to the content they want. But what's important, we're not just creating linear channels. What is really critical for us is starting to change the experience. So you can see a couple of ways we do that. We create these show streams. So from a consumer's perspective, I'm sitting on the couch, same remote, same set top. I'm not messing around with inputs on the back of my TV. I'm watching TV. So when you tune to Foodies, one of our ZoneTV channel, you do it the same way you tune to any other traditional linear channel. And if you put the remote down and just watch forever, it feels like a linear. However, we create a bunch of essentially OTT and personalization capability that we bring into the pay TV environment. So we have layered channels or channels within a channel. So when you tune to Foodie, you can watch, but we also have channels within a channel that are themed. So it may be holiday cooking or cocktails or a certain food item. It's just metadata, and we're putting playlists, again, we call them show streams together, that starts to use that metadata and the power of a pretty smart cloud platform behind it. So that's one way we do it. Probably the best example of how we really start to change the experience is what we call the magic wand. So I'll use Foodies again. I'm watching the show, and I really like the show that's on. I hit enter, and magic wand, we do think that's a verb, by the way. You magic wand that show, and we actually reprogram the channel on the fly for you. So if you think about Pandora, that kind of capability, we're taking that experience into the boring old pay TV world and starting to give consumers that kind of functionality. So again, bridging those two worlds, consumer with their remote can start to really personalize. And now you can see Foodies for you and Foodies for your neighbor has a very different feel to it. So we're really starting to personalize because we're capturing all that information and data on the backside so we can personalize for you. So the other thing we're doing that's different is the way we program and curate. And in the interest of time, so we can get to questions, I won't go through this in a lot of detail, but suffice it to say that we're thinking about programming those channels very differently from a traditional linear offering. Although some of the principles about how you create a personality of a channel, how you string and create hits, all of that still applies. But we're using AI, so think about that magic wand capability is very much part of how our zoners, as we call them, program Foodie or Man Cave or Playground channel. So really starting to change how programming gets done and frankly give some of those same tools to consumers so they can control their experience and personalize a little bit. So you can see when we talk about bridging pay TV and OTT, on the front side, you're sitting there on your couch and it's very much a simple pay TV experience. The power of the guide is what we're using. But on the back side, it is absolutely an OTT backend, really smart platform, and all the personalization and customization and capability that an app or an OTT experience is there. And so that's what, at the end of the day, we're trying to do. And I take it back to operators, and I'm sorry, let me just, the basic offering, pretty simple. Right now, we're sitting on 22 channels. We'll put 5 in front of the paywall. There's a $6.95 subscription for the 17 channels that aren't free, including My Zone, which is a completely personalized channel. And it's just a bolt-on subscription. If an operator has one-click ability to add HBO, then we follow that. And what we ask of the operator is they'll take a rev share for the subscription and advertising. So again, changing the business model for the operator to make it much easier for them to make the decision to take our channels on. My last job at AT&T was president of content and advertising, so I was negotiating those deals. I'm painfully aware of the margin compression issues and what's going on in the pay TV space. So we make it a rev share model to make it much easier. To make it much easier for them to take the content on. And for that rev share split, what we ask is guide space, that they bill it and give us some cross-channel marketing. So it's a pretty simple model. And that's the model, by the way, we use in our existing business, so it's one we're comfortable with and they're comfortable with. And we do allow individual channels at $3 if the operator wants that. So it's we're changing the business model as well and trying to make it much easier for operators in some of their key pain points. So I've talked about, I think, most of this, but for content partners, we're addressing margin compression. We're not taking precious managed bandwidth. We're giving them a marketing message that is very much about taking all that content that's being viewed outside of their subscription and bringing it inside, and doing that with an experience that's really simple and very easy for both them and the consumer. For consumers, it's access to a bunch of new content that if they want, they can add into the subscription. It's content that is clearly interesting to consumers because all of the brands that we're signing have a following in some way, shape, or form. And so it's been a very nice mix. And for content partners, as I mentioned earlier, it is incremental margin for them. They have their business, and this is all new to them and very difficult to get access into this space. And so we really do think we've got a win-win-win across the constituents. And what we're seeing is really significant interest, Europe and North America, from operators to go down this type of path. So I don't think this is the entire solution. I wish it was for operators, but I do think it's part of the answer for them as they evolve and start to figure out a way to create a better aggregation model. They're all trying to do that and bring some of this new digital-first OTT content in. So with that, those are the set of slides. I'm not sure, I'm on a very strict time limit, so I'm not sure how long we have for questions, but okay, happy to take a couple of questions.
So, do we have a roving mic around? Are there any questions from the audience for Jeff? If not, I have one very quick one. Is there anyone? Oh yeah, sorry, one just there, sorry. If you could just say your name and...
yes, hello, Toby Russell from 3Vision. Do you have any information about user interest in the content that you're offering? Any kind of data yet?
Yes, absolutely. So there's a couple pieces to that. User interest in the content. What we know from the subscription service or the number of users that are viewing that content in other environments, so not pay TV. It's part of how we determine whether we want to license content from them or not, have a social following. So we have hard data, very accurate data in terms of the kind of usage they're getting, call it in the OTT world. We have precisely no data on how the consumption takes place in the pay TV space. So we've seen it anecdotally. So we've been out in the real world in very, very limited testing to see how the UI works and what that experience looks like. And what we're seeing anecdotally, but I think pretty strong, is the product works exactly the way we want, meaning through our artificial intelligence and the heuristics, we start to serve up content in those show streams that we think you're going to like. And we're seeing consumers that have no idea what the content is, meaning they never would have found it online on their own, but that they're really interested in that content. And we're thrilled to see that because that's what we want to happen. It's what we tell our content partners, that we're opening up this new audience. Specific example, and it should be clear, we have not signed this content deal yet, but we've used it under demo rights with Dude Perfect, if you know that content. It's pretty fun stuff. And we've seen demographics that not in a million years would find Dude Perfect, I think, online, that we serve it up in the pay TV environment, that are simply thrilled with the content, and it was just a crystal clear example of how we want the product to work. So anecdotally, we certainly know how their content is consumed in the online space.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff. I think we'll have to
Okay,
move on
thanks
to
so
the next
much.
service.